Memory is not a video recording. It's a watercolor painting, remade from a description each time you look at it. It's impressionistic, emotional, and deeply, deeply fallible. That's what I used to believe. It's what we were all taught, but that was before Dr. Julian Croft. Julian didn't just change the world, he repainted it. He invented the memosine implant, a sliver of biotech that rests behind the ear and interfaces directly with the hippocampus. It transformed the messy watercolor of memory into a perfect, high-definition digital file. With it, you could relive your wedding day with perfect clarity. You could study for an exam by simply downloading the textbook. You could walk through your childhood home, unchanged by the ravages of time. And with the help of a licensed memory weaver, like it, meh, you could even find peace. My job, as a Sowit, was to help clients navigate their own pasts. I would guide them through traumatic events, using the memosine interface to soften the edges, to recontextualize the pain, to help them find closure. We weren't erasing memory. That was the cardinal rule. We were simply reframing it, helping the mind heal itself. It was noble work. It was fulfilling work. And I was one of the best. My name is Anya Sharma. And for 7 years, I believed in Julian Croft's vision with every fiber of my being. I saw him as a savior, the man who had given humanity a toolkit to mend its own soul. His company, Elysian Minds, was a beacon of progress. His public persona was that of a gentle, brilliant philanthropist who only wanted to help people forget their pain. And I was his star pupil. The first thread that unraveled everything came from a man named Mr. Silas. He was 87 years old, with eyes clouded by cataracts, but a mind still sharp, at least when he wasn't chasing ghosts. He came to me with a simple request. He wanted to relive the day he proposed to his late wife, Eleanor. It was, Hesite, the single happiest moment of his life. It was at the old observatory. He had told me in our consultation, his voice a reedy whisper. Under the Perseid meteor shower, she had this laugh. It sounded like wind chimes. I want to hear it again. Just once. It was a routine session. I guided Mr. Silas into the weaver's chair, a comfortable recliner humming with quiet technology. I sensed my own memosine implant to his, the world dissolving into the soft, blue light of the neural interface. My consciousness drifted into his, becoming a passenger in his memories. We were there. The air was crisp and cool. Above us, the night sky was a velvet blanket punctured by a million diamond-sharp stars. A young Silas was on one knee holding a small velvet box. A young Eleanor, her face illuminated by starlight, had her hands pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with joyous disbelief. It was perfect, too perfect. The memory was pristine. The resolution was flawless, the audio crystal clear. I could hear the crickets in the grass, feel the gentle breeze. He said the words, she said yes, and then she laughed, and it was beautiful. It sounded like wind chimes. But as the memory played, my weaver's intuition tingled. It was a feeling I'd learned to trust, a sense of unreality. The scene was like a meticulously constructed movie set. There were no rough edges. No stray thoughts from young Silas about being nervous, no distracting sounds from the nearby road. It was a sanitized, idealized version of a memory, and then I saw it. For a single frame, maybe less, as a meteor blazed across the sky, Eleanor's joyful face flickered. For an instant too brief for an untrained mind to catch, her expression wasn't one of joy. It was one of stark, absolute terror. Her eyes were wide, not with surprise, but with fear. Her mouth was open, not in a laugh, but in a silent scream. In that same instant, another figure flickered into existence behind her. A tall man in a long coat, his face obscured by shadow. Then, just as quickly, the frame snapped back. The laugh, the joy, the perfection. It was seamless. I pulled out of the memory, my heart hammering. Mr. Silas was smiling, tears rolling down his wrinkled cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. It was exactly as I remembered, but it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. What I had seen was a digital artifact, but not one I recognized. It wasn't the usual decay of an old memory, the pixelation or audio corruption. It was a slash patch, a splice, as if someone had cut a piece out of the film and replaced it with something else. And for a split second, I'd seen the scene. I reported the anomaly in my session notes, flagging it as a potential Mimicine software bug. A week later, I received a polite, dismissive email from Illusion Mind's technical division. They thanked me for my diligence and assured me their diagnostics showed no malfunction. They suggested it was likely a synthetic reconstruction artifact, the brain's own attempt to fill a natural gap. They told me to ignore it, but I couldn't. The image of Eleanor's terrified face was burned into my mind. I started looking for it. In every session, with every client, I wasn't just weaving anymore. I was hunting. I looked for the seams, and I began to find them. A woman reliving a happy beach vacation with her family had a single, flickering frame where the sun was blotted out and the water was blood red. A CEO remembering the triumphant day. He launched his first company had a split-second flicker of a burning building reflected in his eyes. A politician recalling a charity gala had an instantaneous flash of a briefcase full of cash exchanging hands in a dark alley. Each time, the flicker was terrifying. Each time, it was seamlessly patched over with a pleasant, sanitized scene, and each time I found a common thread. Every single client with a patched memory had, at some point in their past, a direct connection to Julian Croft or one of his subsidiary companies. They had been early investors. They had been business rivals. They had been former employees. This wasn't a bug. This was a feature. He wasn't just helping people reframe their pain. He was editing their pasts. He was cutting out the ugly parts, the inconvenient parts, the incriminating parts, and leaving behind a perfect curated lie. The man who promised to heal our memories was systematically destroying them. He was deleting history, and the scenes he was deleting, I had to see them. That's when I stopped being a weaver and became something else, an archaeologist, a neuroarchaeologist. I spent my nights in my private lab, a room shielded from any outside network connections. I took the raw data from the patched memories I had archived and began working on a new kind of software. Not a weaver's loom to smooth things over, but a chisel and brush to dig underneath. I was trying to find a way to pry up the patch, to peer into the digital wound it was covering. I was trying to restore the deleted scenes. It was dangerous, obsessive work. I was violating every ethical protocol of my profession. I was pushing the Mimicine technology far beyond its intended limits. I felt a constant, low-grade paranoia. Julian Croft was a powerful man, a beloved icon. Accusing him of this was like accusing the sun of being a conspiracy. I needed proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. The breakthrough came, as they so often do, in the dead of night, fueled by caffeine and a desperate hunch. I realized the patches weren't just pasted on top. They were woven into the memory at a foundational level. To see behind them, I had to trick the Mimicine system into rendering the raw data before the patch was applied. I wrote a recursive algorithm, a sort of digital crowbar, designed to exploit the tiny temporal gap I saw in Mr. Silas's memory. A program to find the seam and pull the thread. I loaded Mr. Silas's memory file. My hands trembled as I initiated the program. My computer's fans whirred to life, the processor straining under the load. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a new file appeared on my screen. Fragment underscore o1.mem. It was small, corrupted, but it was there. I sensed to it. The world that flooded my senses was not the beautiful observatory. It was cold, dark. I was still in young Silas's perspective, but the memory was shattered. The audio was a roar of static and wind, and the scene. Eleanor wasn't laughing. She was screaming, pleading with the shadowed figure behind her. "Please, Julian, don't do this," she cried. The name hit me like a physical blow. Julian. The shadowed figure stepped forward, and for a second, the moonlight caught his face. It was a young Julian Croft. He looked colder, harder, but it was unmistakably him. He wasn't there to watch the meteors. He was there to retrieve something. Some research he claimed Eleanor's father, his former partner, had stolen from him. The rest of the fragment was a chaotic mess of fear and shouting. The proposal hadn't been a romantic surprise. It had been a desperate act, a shield. Young Silas had seen Croft arrive and, in a moment of panicked inspiration, had dropped to one knee, creating a public spectacle to keep Croft from doing whatever he had come to do. The original memory wasn't one of joy. It was one of terror, narrowly averted. Julian Croft hadn't just patched a bad memory for a client. He had edited himself out of a crime. He had erased his own violent intimidation and replaced it with a beautiful, heartwarming lie, leaving Mr. Silas with a perfect memory that was, in fact, a complete fabrication. My blood ran cold. I had the proof. But as I stared at the fragment, and now more horrifying thought began to creep in. I had worked at Elysian Mines for 3 years as an intern, right alongside Julian during the final development stages of the Memosine. I remembered it as the most inspiring time of my life. I remembered Julian as a patient, kind mentor. My memories of that time, they were perfect. Too perfect. With a sense of dawning horror, I turned. The tool on myself, I put myself in the weaver's chair, something no weaver ever does. You can't be objective with your own past. But I wasn't trying to be objective. I was trying to find the seams. I loaded my own memories from that 3-year period. The triumphant day we had our first successful trial. The company parties. The late-night brainstorming sessions with Julian. All of it was golden, luminous, and to my now trained eye, completely fake. The edges were too smooth, the emotions too clean. I engaged my own algorithm. My mind, my own sacred past, became the archaeological dig site. The process was agonizing. It felt like my skull was being torn apart from the inside. But I pushed through the pain, driven by a terrifying need to know the truth. And then I found it. A huge patch, placed right over the memory of the final human trials. A patch that covered not a single moment, but 3 entire days. I restored the fragment, and my world shattered. The memory that flooded my senses was not a triumph. It was a catastrophe. The first human test subject was not a volunteer. Her name was Dr. Iris Thorne, a brilliant neuroscientist, who had been critical of Julian's methods, arguing they were too invasive, too dangerous. In the restored memory, I saw Julian override her objections. I saw him forcibly use the prototype Memosine on her, trying to prove its efficacy by editing her memory of the argument they just had. But something went wrong. The prototype malfunctioned catastrophically. I saw Dr. Thorne seize in the chair, her mind collapsing under the digital assault. I saw the panic in a young Julian Croft's eyes as he realized he had gone too far, and I saw myself, a terrified intern, frozen in the corner of the lab, watching it all unfold. Dr. Iris Thorne didn't walk out of that lab. She was left in a persistent vegetative state, her mind irrevocably shattered. The official story was a tragic aneurysm, a lie. A lie that I had not only believed, but that he had programmed me to believe. The deleted scene wasn't just a memory. It was my complicity, my silence. He hadn't just edited my memory to protect himself. He had edited it to make me a loyal, unwitting accomplice. The kindness, the mentorship, the inspiration, all of it was a lie painted over the canvas of a horrific crime. The last thing I saw in the fragment was Julian turning to me, his face a mask of cold fury, the prototype mimicine device in his hand. "You will remember this as a success," he said, his voice like ice. "You will remember me as a hero." Then the memory went black. I ripped the neural link from my head, gasping, choking, Tyrell, ugly truth crashing down. On me, he hadn't just edited me. He had built my entire career, my entire belief system, on a foundation of lies. Every time I had soothed a client's pain, I had been using the very tool born from that unspeakable violence. Just as the restored memory settled, a red light blinked on my shielded console, an incoming connection request. Bypassing all my firewalls. It was from an encrypted Illusion Mind server. From him, he knew. My digging, my restoration of my own memory had triggered some kind of silent alarm. He knew I had restored the deleted scene. A message appeared on my screen, not words, just a command line. Initiate _protocol_override.anya sharma.full. A full wipe. He was going to do it again. Not just patch the memory, but erase me completely. Turn me into another Dr. Thorne. I didn't have time to run. The only place I could fight him was on his own turf. The battlefield of the mind. I re-engaged my neural link, slashed my hands flying across the console, not loading a memory, but opening the base code of my own mnemosine implant. I was going in raw. As his override command began to infiltrate my system, I met it head on. My mind became a swirling vortex of code and light. I could feel his presence, a cold, orderly, suffocating force. He was the editor, the censor, moving through my memories with a digital scalpel, trying to cut away the truth I had just reclaimed. He appeared before me in the data space, not as the kind philanthropist the world knew, but as the cold, ruthless man from my restored memory. "It's a kindness, Anya," his voice echoed through my mindscape. "The truth is messy. It's painful. I am giving you peace. I am giving you perfection." Images of my doctored past swirled around us, the successful trial, the happy parties. It was seductive. It was a beautiful lie. "You're not giving peace," I shot back, my own consciousness taking form as a warrior of light, armed with my restoration algorithm. "You're manufacturing control. Our flaws, opine, our messy truths. That's what makes us human. You're not healing people. You're hollowing them out." I fought back. Instead of letting him cut, I restored. I forced the memory of Dr. Thorne on him, to raw, unfiltered agony of it. The data space around us contorted, the beautiful lies shattering like glass, replaced by the stark, cold reality of the lab, the sound of her screams, the smell of burning electronics. He recoiled, his perfect digital avatar flickering. The truth was a weapon he had long forgotten how to wield. He was stronger. He was the architect of this world. But I had the one thing he didn't, the truth. I had embraced the deleted scenes. I accepted my part in them, my fear, my silence. And that acceptance gave me a strength his perfect, sterile lies couldn't match. While he was busy trying to delete the memory of Dr. Thorne from our shared space, I was working. I isolated the memory fragment, the raw data of his crime, and rerouted all my processing power to one single task: broadcasting. I sent the fragment _02.mem file, the memory of what happened to Dr. Iris Thorne, out of my shielded lab. I sent it to every independent news agency, every government watchdog, every ethics committee I could find. A single / undeniable data packet containing the truth. The ultimate deleted scene, restored and released into the wild. Julian felt the data transfer. He turned his full power on me, a final, desperate attempt to wipe me out. But it was too late. The file was away. I collapsed all my defenses around one single core command: eject. I was thrown from my own mind, landing back in the reality of my lab with a painful jolt. The red light on my console was flashing erratically, then it went dark. He was gone. I had locked him out. I was alone, truly alone, with the full, horrifying weight of my real memories. I remembered everything. And it hurt. It hurt more than anything I had ever known. The world outside my lab erupted. The story of Dr. Thorne, supported by the undeniable proof of a raw memory file, was a firestorm that consumed Julian Croft and Elysian Mines. The hero became a monster overnight. The stock market crashed, governments launched massive investigations, and people everywhere were faced with a terrifying question: is my life real? Are my happiest memories my own? The fallout is still settling. Julian Croft is gone, vanished, though his assets are frozen and he is the most wanted man on the planet. The Memesine technology is now a subject of fierce, terrified debate, and I am no longer a weaver. I am a restorer. My work now is to help the others, the ones he edited. I use my tools not to create peace, but to find truth. I help them dig through their own minds, to face the deleted scenes, to reclaim their messy, painful, flawed, and beautiful pasts. It's agonizing work, it's terrifying work, but it is real. They called him a savior for editing our memories. He offered a world without pain, a history without scars. But a life without scars is a life without lessons. A past without pain is a past without meaning. I restored the deleted scenes, not just for me, but for all of us. Because the truth, no matter how ugly, is the only thing that can truly set us free.